So we
Oh, you
are.
did it last week.
I know, right? I did it on Monday.
Yeah, you did it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So here we are live on Hump Day.
I can't believe you just called it Hump Day.
It,
I remember
it,
hearing that at work all the time.
right? Me too. Yeah, it was one of the radio stations, and they would always say, "Yeah, it's Hump Day." So Wednesday is a Hump Day of middle of the week. And so we thought we would check in back with everybody. This is our morning chat over coffee. I'm actually having my lemon water, so I'm still trying to be a good girl with my cleanse.
I finished
You
mine. Oh
got
yeah,
your
you
coffee?
good for you. So you haven't had coffee. You haven't had any reactions or anything?
I have not had coffee since February 21st.
Hmm.
I have not had a glass of wine since February 21st.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. The coffee, I guess the first couple of days was a bit hard because I really enjoyed my two coffees in the morning, and that's all I would really have the rest of the day. But giving them up, it was a little bit hard. But like when you're in the zone and you're really, my mind was made up. And we talked about this on Monday about force versus flow. Well, the first time I did the cleanse, I was so in flow. I was just like I was there, and I was driven. Second time, not so much, not so much. It was like forcing a round peg into a square hole. Now I don't want to do it. No. Anyway, I finished on Sunday, but I am keeping up the lemon water. I'm going to keep that going as long as I can, and I think I'm going to do some celery juice after this call. So, yes, so hump day, middle of the week, good time to check in and say, okay, where are we at? Where are we at? Monday, we talked about celebrating. So, has anybody celebrated a win, celebrated themselves, celebrated just because you woke up on the right side of the daisy this morning? Here's the,
So for a little bit more than celebrating waking up, you know?
yeah. Well, I celebrated that I finished the second cleanse by ordering myself some new art supplies because you can never have too many.
Oh,
Yeah, getting back into my art, dug out my sketchbook, and I've been sitting doodling at night. So that's fun. So it's an inexpensive way to to harness what you love and get back to what you enjoy. And how about you, Sue? What do you celebrate?
oh my gosh, I celebrated. Well, I've now finished. Well, I didn't edit, but I finished the four episodes of the podcast. So I'm
Mm,
just gathering about 10 interviews, and we're launching the first episode for Crystal Robinson's book launch. So, no, so I've just,
wow.
and it's funny because I was telling Andrew, my stepson, because, I was explaining the podcast process to him, and he's like, you just did all that. Literally, I do my own uploading of my podcast into the podcast host. I do my own show notes. I figured out how to edit, but I don't edit. That takes a lot too much time. So I hire
Mm,
somebody to edit. But
mm.
I do all my other tech stuff. I do on my website. So he's like, holy moly. I'm like, really, it's not so hard if you just go and try and do
If
it.
if you just go and try, yeah,
Yeah. We
yeah.
immediately think IT is so daunting, and then we go into it, and the first struggle we have, we stop because it's too daunting. But no, I'm telling you, it's so much easier than we think. It really is. I'm not a techie freak. I'm more a numbers science freak than I am a techie freak, but I've become really like good at it because we were talking about that. Weren't we talking about that on Monday? Resourcefulness,
Yeah,
right? In
yeah,
chaos, because that's what happens
yeah.
when I go into IT. When my first time going into it, WordPress, I'm like, oh my God, this is chaotic. Like there are so many elements to this. Where do I start? And start by the first thing you're trying to do.
Wow. I know, and I've seen some of your work. Your website is beautiful that you built. It's crazy. I'm
Yeah.
so impressed.
Yeah. Well, that, where I've gotten to now, it's years of playing with it and
Yeah,
refining and going and changing but start somewhere, right?
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that message because we tend to not even try because the fear overtakes, even attempting. And that bloody fear, which is just like we could look at that as an acronym, which I love, which is false evidence appearing real. It's false.
I
Like what,
love your acronym.
right? Oh, yeah, me too.
I kiss and fear. I just love them
Yeah,
now.
kiss is a good one. The kiss theorem. But yeah, fear, what is it? It's false. It's what the hell is it? It's the unknown. So, but we shut down and we don't even try.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't.
Well, that's the thing, right? And this is the crazy thing with the way our mind works, because you and I were talking about absolutes and believe me, I've been kicked in the ass by my husband for the last 18 years. Is like, because he's such a logical freak. He's like, well, you just turned me off by using a 100%. Like, yes, absolute. And I'm like, ah, screw you. Right? It's like, yeah, you're right. Ah, screw you. So, but the way our mind works is we don't like the word false, right?
Mm,
Because it's not false. What we feel is real,
it's real.
right? So, yeah, what we feel is real. The feeling is real, but the story around it is
Is
not
real.
real,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
So, we were talking about clarity before we hopped onto this call, right? And this is one of the clarity points for us women that don't even know where clarity is anymore. But seriously, when we hear the word false, our mind just shuts down already, because we don't know how to understand what's false. Because what's false, if it feels real, where is the real and false, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's really key.
Yeah. So what we're feeling when we go into trying something and failing. So when you go into WordPress, let's say, and you start playing with it, it's like, oh geez, I'm lost now already. Like
Yeah.
within 1 minute, I'm lost.
Yeah.
And at that point, we start feeling the pain of failure, right?
Right.
And then that judgment of ourselves, that we're useless. And then the story goes on, but that's what we're feeling. And so that's what we're stopping. It's not the act of IT. It's not this. I see the same mechanism happen with people when they go into love, when they go into
Mm,
IT, when they go into a situation where they have to voice their truth to somebody. It's like
mm-hmm.
same mechanism.
It is the same. You're right.
That's fear, right?
Yeah. The fear, yeah, rears its ugly head. We kind of look at it. We think it's real. We shut down. We don't even want to try. But I can't do it. Now, how about
Yeah.
jumping out of an airplane? Right? Now that's scary. It's a little fear there.
I probably wouldn't do it alone, but if I
Yeah.
had a guide, I would trust a guide.
Me
Kevin,
too.
even if Kevin had 10 guides, he won't do it,
He
right?
won't do it. And Dave
He doesn't
either.
even trust 10 guides, never mind like
No, I'm really terrified of heights, but it's on my bucket list to jump out of a plane before I die.
oh, let's do it together because I
We're
know
doing it together.
no, but seriously, I think and I always say this, right? When it comes to IT, since we're on that topic, if we can't face our own fear alone within like four walls,
Mhm.
we're going to struggle out there with people, right? So if we're going to face that fear, that feeling of going into IT, go and figure out, spend an hour and give yourself that hour to just go play around with something with curiosity and interest, right? And and overcome that feeling of failure,
Mhm.
because you're all by yourself anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody knows what you're
No
doing.
one sees what you're doing. No one's
Isn't that
judging you but
crazy?
you. Yeah. So that judge that stands behind us, just give him a task. Like, okay, go get busy. Go make me breakfast or something. Leave me alone and let me. Yeah. And in today's world too, let's face it, the information and the resources that are out there is like crazy. All you have to do is go onto Google and say how to. How do I add a page in WordPress? How do I make a MailChimp, mailing list? Like the information is there. There are so many tutorials.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So there's no reason even to feel that you've got nobody in your corner to help you because the internet is out there and it's filled.
Well, and it's interesting. Like, so I had this conversation with Andrew yesterday because he was asking his dad a question about Excel because
Mm.
he's learning to master Excel. And I swear to God, I've mastered Excel now. I even know how to create formulas to calculate the number of days within that time period,
Oh,
right?
that's so cool.
Yeah. So, but and Andrew asked Kevin a question about freezing panes, right?
Hmm.
And Kevin called it something else. And so Kevin called me and asked me what Andrew should do. So, anyways, and Andrew was asking me, so when did you learn to how did you learn to the work well with Excel, right? I said, well, that was a long time ago, but with Google, you can Google anything, right? And I told him, but you just have to know what it's called, right?
Right. Right.
So if you Google something, you have to know what you're Googling. That's the problem with Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting the words right. It's true. But sometimes it'll guess for you and it's pretty good at guessing. When you get this drop down, it's like, how did they know that? But sometimes, yeah, it comes up with some pretty wild stuff. It's like, no, that's not really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you keep going,
You
right?
keep
And then,
going.
and it's something so simple always. But if we train our minds, is that's why I think it was Cynthia on Monday said chaos is creativity.
Yeah.
That's when that chaos is really good to be resourceful to try to find, because the chaos is your own confusion. And the chaos is
Mhm.
your own confusion with your own frustration, with your own stories against, on how bad you are with something and all that. That's chaos to me, right?
Chaos
Never.
of the mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have to master our own chaos and understand it,
Yeah.
to get out of it, rather, because if we can't do it in our own mind, the chaotic world that
It,
we live in.
that's right. And it's out there. So actually, let's keep going on this topic because we had a little bit of an offshoot conversation after our call on Monday, after, we weren't live anymore and recording. But I was talking about a friend of mine, like growing up, I knew her and she lived in chaos. She had like a stepmom and stepbrothers and sisters and, I mean, it just like the whole family. So you can imagine when you've got that kind of thing going on, there's a lot of different chaos that could happen. And so I was saying, like, how does a person who's in that sort of the eye of the storm of this chaotic world around them, how much of it is sort of created from their own addiction to drama, addiction to chaos, versus how do they get out of it? And we had a really good talk about that, and you had some really good insights, as you always do, around, a person, what are they creating versus, how can they actually remove themselves, say, from it when they think it's happening to them instead of happening because of them.
Well, it's interesting. That's a really good question because a lot of people struggle with the chaos. And these are typically, I look at only the people that are spiritual out there or the people that are into personal development, because I look at that area. Why, if we're studying all these things on self-help and growth, right? Why are we still struggling? Like, if we are truly evolved spiritual beings, why is there so much chaos that we're
Yeah,
dealing with, that we're
yeah,
victimized by, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm always intrigued. I'm always intrigued, like, why doesn't it work? So I don't feed on what works. I celebrate what works. I try to understand what works so I could repeat it. But I'm
Mm.
always intrigued on, I'm not studying what works. I'm studying what doesn't
My
work,
word,
right?
it doesn't.
So we have to really focus our learning, because that's the trick out there. So when I look at somebody that's always in chaos or reacting to somebody else's stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That is
There's the distinction. Yeah, that's good.
right, because we are now being dictated by somebody else's stuff, right?
Right.
So somebody, but it's funny. I was just having a conversation with Kevin right before we hopped onto the call about clarity. I asked him to define clarity for me. Of course, he gives me the dictionary, because he's memorized literally the dictionary. So I'm like, and I'm like, honey,
Ah, Kevin.
that doesn't tell me. No, he literally has memorized the dictionary. So that's what I love about him, because I don't think
Clarity is, yeah,
I
a
make
noun.
I have my own pseudonics. I make up my own language, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but think about it. Like, if you are constantly reacting to
Mm-hmm,
chaos
mm-hmm.
and telling yourself that that is what it is,
Right,
then you are addicted to it.
right.
And
Oh, that's good. So if you're saying chaos, well, that's the way it is.
yeah,
Like, oh, well, then you're addicted to it because you're
yes,
just going to keep inviting it in. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, because don't forget, especially as coaches or as influencers or whatever we are, whatever we are, um, I'm not here to judge you on whether that chaos is good for you or not.
Right,
If you don't tell me that you're suffering, then I have no right to judge you that it's bad.
right.
It's serving you, right? So the person you're talking about, it's serving her, it's giving her purpose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
if that's how she wants to live, that's okay. However, um, to be a conscious, evolved being, we have to be conscious of the role model that we are representing. in humanity,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So the more
mm.
conscious evolved beings, if I were that person and I'm evolved, I would tell people, I accept this chaos, but you shouldn't if you don't, you have a choice, you know? Now that's more conscious, but then if you're conscious, you wouldn't be in that situation. So you see how like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a real quandary right there, because yeah, it's what is that, a paradox? Like you can't see it till you're it, but you can't be it until you see it. So it's like, okay, so you definitely, I think a lot of people for sure need somebody to help guide them. I think a lot of the times, I mean, it really comes down to that. It comes down to needing a mentor or a coach or a really good friend who won't bullshit you, a good friend who'll call you out. Because we can't see it when we're in the weeds of it. And God knows I've looked back on my life so many times and when I was in the weeds and I didn't see it, and then I get out of it and I go back, like, how could I not have, but you don't see your own crap. You don't see your own bullshit. You don't until somebody calls you out. And usually your first inclination is to get your back up going, no, I'm not. No, da, da, da. But when you get out of yourself and you get out of your own way, and then you can look at it objectively and go, wow, you're right. I am addicted to it, or whatever the case may be.
yeah, because and it's a simple thing as the language we tell ourselves. Like the way
Mhm.
we speak every day, it's like when something bad happens, right? Or you're being dragged in too many different areas, and all of a sudden you come out and you're sitting there and you're talking to that person says, and this is classic, I've called out so many clients on this, but they laugh because when I call you, I was like, oh my gosh, it's true. This is logical. But it's like you describe all this chaos. So let's say I'm talking to you and I described all this chaos that I went through yesterday, Sherry. And then at the end, I close it by, but it's all good. It's all good. Because
Yeah, yeah,
we're taught to be this false
yeah,
positive. Oh my
yeah,
God. I'm like, and I'm sitting there with this confused look in my face, like, is that really good? Is that
yeah,
how you feel
yeah,
in
yeah.
the universe
Is
that
that
it's good? Is that how we pacify ourselves?
Yes,
So that's
yes,
how you invite, because you're telling the
yes,
universe, but it's all good. I can
yes.
handle it because it's all good. I'm spiritual now. No,
Yeah, so bring on more, bring it on. It's all good.
you think? You think?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, the power of our thoughts is so true, eh? The power of our words.
Yeah, we
Mm,
pacify
mm,
ourselves instead of, and so the person you're talking about, um, that person, she's very aware of what is going on, but she doesn't want to change who she is. She always asks for advice to get the solution to the problem, to pacify the problem, but
mm,
she's never asking to change the way she operates,
mm.
right? So when you really get to that clarity, you know where the person stands.
Right.
Don't, and it's funny, I was working on a post because I have to work on 10 posts, like pre-written posts for my marketing team. And one of the posts is probably one of my favorite posts of all times, but I'm going to repeat it again with a different message. And it is, I stopped explaining myself to people that understand from their level of perception.
Yes. Wow, bravo. Yes, yes, it's true because you cannot get somebody to see your perspective if they are on a completely different level and a different perspective. They just won't get you. They won't get your intentions. No, you're right. And that'd be like beating your head against a wall, but they won't get it.
And it's not a judgment whether they're
No,
lower or
no.
higher. It's That's the one thing I learned from Bob. He used to say all the time, Bob Proctor, and he used to say, you know, we who are more conscious and evolved can see the dotted lines of where we came from, right? But still, we can't see in the future. So
That's right.
somebody's going to do that to us,
That's right.
but we can see the dotted lines of how we got here. But those people that are you're talking to are still back there. They don't have a clue what you're talking about,
Right. That's
right?
right. Not a
So
clue.
that's why leadership is not about trying to convince people, right?
Right.
Because otherwise we're beating our heads. I mean, there's no convincing. It's not me to convince you that you're suffering. If you are telling yourself that you need to suffer, because there are martyrs out there, you know.
Hmm. It's like, oh, it's okay.
That's why I'm on this earth. I'm so giving. The whole concept of giving is so screwed up. It's not even funny. It's choosing what we give to.
Right.
So when
Right.
I was asking Kevin about the clarity question, right?
Yeah.
And here's how I defined it, right? And it's very simple. Clarity happens when you have such certainty, when you have the ability to change your no to a yes, and then actually take an action right away without hesitation,
Mm,
right? You can only have clarity when you hit that point of your limitation. Clarity does not occur in the middle of the bubble, and clarity does not occur outside of the bubble. Clarity only occurs at the peripheral.
it is the bubble.
Yeah. So when you hit that no where you're stuck, that's where you lack clarity. And to find the clarity to take that step forward, that's where that clarity happens.
So an example, like trying to take a decision. Say people, especially in our 50s, they might be waffling about, maybe it's time to make a career change. I'm fed up with corporate. I'm tired of being the yes man, whatever. So you're waffling, you're thinking of making a decision, you're not sure. It's like, do I, don't I, when do I leave? Once you align, when you get into your alignment, when you are fully centered and you know in your heart it's time to go, and that no becomes the yes, boom, clarity. And that's the day you hand in your slip. I'm out.
Yeah. And so how do you get there? That's the key,
That
right? So
right.
what is that moment? And that moment is when you connect with your personal truth unapologetically.
Oh, I like that. Connect to your truth unapologetically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means never mind. And it's funny because I work with women, young women that have lost their truths, right? So especially in relationships.
Mm,
But I work with also this concept of belonging, right?
mm,
And the concept of belonging happens in every decade. It doesn't matter whether we're in the 30s, 40s,
it's
50s, right?
true.
Finding our belonging is an art that most people don't focus on. They focus on support, they focus on communities, tribes, whatever. But belonging is a sense of existence, right? It's a sense of being. So when we belong, it means we are seen and we are heard. But we
That
don't
is so
do that
beautiful.
with ourselves. We don't even do that with ourselves.
No, you're right. You're right. That is really beautiful. And and in a friendship, I'm picturing that too. When you have like a really good friend who really sees you and understands you, you belong. There is that like coming home almost feeling with that friend. Or
That's exactly what it is. It's that coming home. When you
yeah,
feel that belonging, when you feel heard or seen, outside of you having to convince anybody,
yeah,
tears will come right out of your eyes.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't help it.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, it's true because we do spend a lot of our energy, like you say, on community and building tribes, which are important. It's good to be with like-minded people, and or even just a group of people to bounce ideas off of. But when you actually belong with somebody or with a group, yeah, that's really, really key.
Yeah.
For who you are.
Yeah. There's, and that's the most beautiful place to be because there's no competition there. No one has lived your life,
That's right. That's right. Your
right?
story is your own. Yeah, very unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? You choose to live with it, your life the way you choose. So it's really funny how clarity is all tied to your personal truth.
Mm. Yep. And I don't think a lot of people have gotten that connection. I'm taking some notes here though, because yeah, to once you feel really good in your skin, once you belong to yourself, you can look in the mirror and actually recognize who's looking back. Because that's something we suffer with a lot in our 50s as well, because we haven't really maybe looked at ourselves for a couple of decades because we've been busy on the career track or on the mommy track or whatever. And now we're looking at ourselves and it's like, whoa, so who is that person looking back? Once you belong, you start really, it's true. It's like everything starts shifting. And I go back to that integrity piece of being in alignment. You are then in full integrity and you can you can speak your truth and more, and you can say your yeses and you can say your nos. You can draw your boundaries. You can, you just get stronger and stronger, and that's clarity. And then it's easier to take those steps, those next steps, or taking action on whatever it is.
Yeah, because the clarity part, the what we call the aha moments, or the clarity is even higher than an aha moment, right?
Yeah, it
Because
is.
clarity
Yeah.
will set you into motion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is what we all want. We all want to get unstuck, but people don't know. And we live in a world where we go into social media and we're given instruction on how to move forward. What the heck? That is so far from like personal truth. It's not even funny. But um it's funny because we were just talking about looking in a mirror, and
Mm,
I know, these very successful women that on the outside look like they have it all together.
mm-hmm.
And one person used to tell me that she loved to listen to herself. She loved to look at herself talk, right? And I'm like, oh, geez. And yesterday I was talking to my, I was, and that's her way of showing the world that she's confident.
Right.
But I remember my husband used to say to me all the times, like, why does she keep looking at herself in the mirror? Every time she passes a mirror, she'll look at herself, and like that's what Kevin was used to ask me all the time. It's like, why is she always like looking at
And
herself?
he noticed.
And I'm like, well, because maybe she's proud of herself. I don't know. I don't. I'm like, okay, whatever. I took a look. Okay, good. Like, and he said, no, that's somebody who's just full of themselves and they're
Mm,
just making sure that they look good,
mm,
right?
that's a really good topic. This is a good discussion because,
Right.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's what I call, and I really thought about it a few years ago. I was like, wow, that's what we call false, like
yeah.
imposter, right?
Being conceited, being full of yourself. Like that
Yes.
was almost one of the mortal sins growing up. Like, don't be too conceited. So don't spend too much time looking in the mirror. Don't spend too much time on your hair or your makeup or so this is really good because this is a key point for a lot of women. Like, what is the fine line of just standing in your authenticity? I love when Oprah has shown, herself without makeup. Here I am, authentic, versus here I am, maybe done up a little bit. Maybe, here I am. So there's different faces that we present, but it all comes down to but what's inside of you and how confident are you or comfortable and how much do you belong in your skin. I think if you belong, then you don't need to spend a lot of time in the mirror. Just make sure your hair is combed so you don't look like a wreck. But but come on out and face the world. It's like, hey, this is me. Take it or leave it.
You know what? I think that fine line is because that person I was talking about, she and I used to clash all the time in that way because I would go out in the world exactly what I look like today. And I'm like, it is what it is. As long as I don't look like a car wreck, I'm just fine.
Yeah, same.
Because there's something, and you know what? That person is for some people, and I'm for some people, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if some people need to go onto a camera at 8 o'clock in the morning and look like they didn't even sleep, and they're all made up to be perfect looking, I'm like, I look at them and say, "Oh, that looks nice," but it's not real to me,
Not
right?
real.
So
Yeah, it's like paint. It's slapping paint on the
yeah,
exterior. Yeah.
yeah. And because I work with alignment and truth, I don't want to falsify something to the point where
Mm.
no, this is not what I look like at 8 o'clock in the morning having my coffee. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is an 8 a.m. chat, folks.
Maybe if my lips are cracking, I might put some lip gloss on there, but
Yeah.
this is not what, like, can't we just go into the world and share our realness? And so she and I used to have these clashes all the time because she would love to listen to herself. And yesterday I got called out by my editing guy, right?
Mm.
And he doesn't even know me. He's only known me for 2 weeks, but he's done such a good job. And he said, so can you tell me which parts of the podcast you want me to edit out? And I'm like, well, there's nothing specific about it. Like, I don't know where. And I'm like, to be honest with you, I haven't listened to myself over again. Like, I heard once and that was enough. I said, I think I might hate my voice. So if you could just take care of it for me.
Can you change my voice?
I said, "I can't listen to myself again." His name is Borja. "I can't listen to myself again." And he said, "Don't say that." He said,
Don't
"Don't
say
say
that.
that."
Yeah.
He says, "You have a lovely voice and you are a great speaker." And I'm like, "Oh, isn't that sweet of him to say, but I don't want to listen to my podcast again. I heard it was. That's enough for me. This is my podcast."
Moving on. On to the next.
I said, "Can you take your judgment call on it. I'll trust
No.
you. I can't listen to myself again." And it's true. It's like, okay, I heard it once. Sounds okay. Good. Let's move on.
On to, yeah, because that's,
I'm
yeah,
not a perfectionist in that way, and I told him, don't perfect it. I don't want a perfect podcast. Just make sure that, the
it's
sound is,
perfect enough. I love that.
yeah.
I think that's one of Brene Brown's statements. Yeah, it's perfect enough. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So I think there's a good lesson to be learned from that. So maybe we'll end it today. It's already 8:31. I can't believe how fast this goes. Wow, there was so much more we were going to talk about, but I mean, this is always just so impromptu anyway, and the conversation goes where it needs to go. Anyway, for those listening, if we're happy to share our morning laugh and coffee with you. Today's nuggets was all about belonging. Belonging will gain clarity. I love that. I'll put in a few crib notes maybe as after the call. And so go and celebrate something, celebrate yourself. See, look at what you've been up to and what you're going to be up to. We got another great weekend coming up. As I wish everybody a great day and a great week. Susan, as always, this was awesome.
Yeah,
Mwah.
so much fun. We'll
So
see you
much
back
fun.
on
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah. Back on Monday, 8 a.m. All right, everybody. Have a
Have a
super
great day.
great day.